fight off rebels. Okay, so he left the military scene and came into the governmental scene in June 30th, 1989. He led a successful coup d'etat against Sadiq al-Mahdi, that was the then president. So basically what he did was he got a bunch of people, Islamics, to basically take the president that was in power out. He did this by getting everybody against him and taking the president out. And the president had been there, like president, since 1986. He then abolished the parliament, banned political parties, eliminated free press, which means no newspapers could be published, and began to Islamicize Sudan. What that means is anything that wasn't Islamic, he didn't want. So that means if you're Christian, he didn't want it. He tried to basically make Sudan an Islamic country with Arabs, and that means if you weren't Arab, then you weren't wanted there. And he stepped up assaults against the rebels in the south. So before, they were fighting the rebels in the south, when things would come up, but now he just stepped up the security and made it that the rebels were being taken care of. His way to dictatorship. October 16, 1993, al-Bashir was appointed president, but got elections in 1996, which means that he was kind of like Obama, he was running for president. That was when his time when he was trying to get people on his side, and won in 1996. So he finally became president in 1996. He declared a state of emergency December 1999, and to do that, he disbanded the legislature and suspended the constitution. He became dictator. And then in 2000, there was another election. And he won, but the only reason he won was because Southerners, which were the people who were against him, the blacks, and where most of the rebels originated from, couldn't vote. Their votes didn't count. So that means only the Arabs were allowed to vote, and most of the Arabs were for him. And this sounds familiar because this is exactly what Hitler did. What Hitler did was use the laws, turned it against, turned them around, manipulated people so that he could use the laws for his own benefit. And he did a good job in doing so because, like Hitler, these people were having problems with the rebels. So he used that to his advantage when he was talking in public.
Alright, this is the overview of the whole genocide. And the civil put the ending, they were billions of birth. And the government have funded Arabian militia, which means that the government will give them guns, give them money for all type of weapons, and train them to go out and kill the rebels, in the south. And the Janjaweed, which is the Arab militia, they killed up to 200,000, 300,000 citizens during that time period. And after that, 2.5 million was displaced, as again, they was kicked out to the neighboring country, Chad. And then the Sudan Liberal Army and the Justice and Equal Movement attacked the government troops. Then the Southerners people, the Africans, started protesting against started protesting, and then when they started protesting, it didn't didn't make a difference because the government was overlooking them and see how they was poor, and not paying attention to them. And the government claims that they was just stopping the rebels, and the government claimed they was just stopping the rebels, but it was using it as a cover-up, even though they was stopping the rebels at the same time, but also killing citizens and the poor people they was kicking out. These are the Arabians and the non-Arabs. This means that these are different type of religions right here. black Muslims, black Christians, and black animists. Black animists is that the black Africans worshiping like the nature and like nature's and how the season and stuff like that. That's what they're worshiping. You know, Christians and Muslims. The second group one is these are the different tribes that's all in Africa. I don't know if I can name them, but they was targeted basically if you wasn't Arab. And the Janjaweed are basically the perpetrators, and they mark themselves by wearing white for purity, which means that they wanted to stand out. Like, yeah, we're the Janjaweed. This is who we are. We're going to, you know, do this and do that, kill this and that. But after a time, they started changing their appearance, so they started blending in with like the regular people. Even though as soon as they blend in, they were still killing off other people to make it more successful, like camouflage in a way, still killing off other people.
All right, so in class we had been learning about the 8 stages of genocide, and we had learned that no genocide is really a genocide without these 8 stages. So first I want to start with classification, which is categories that distinguish them from us, like, you know what I mean? Like, what makes them the enemy. And in Sudan, it was the Sudanese Africans, which were classified as darker, against the Arab Sudanese, which were of much lighter complexion. And also nomads versus farmers. And then for symbolization, given names or other symbols to classify them. And basically that was just African Sudanese were referred to black or slaves because of their skin color. So that's how you would classify them. Dehumanization is when one group denies the humanity of other group. What they used a lot of the time was ethnic cleansing, and what they would do is rape women so that there would be no more pure African blacks. And they would also castrate the men, which means men wouldn't be able to offspring, which would basically be wiping out a whole race. Stages continue. Organization, organizing groups to carry out their plans. Governments supported the Janjaweed, and they did that by arming them and training the militia group. Because, you know, without weapons and training, how would they have been able to like kill so many people? Preparation was victims are separated out because of their ethnic or religious identity. Janjaweed, they started off wearing white, signifies purity, and then they also did this by, after burning down villages of the Africans were left with nowhere to go, and they had stole all their cattle and stuff like that, so they had nothing to eat, so they were left in a place where human cannot sustain. Extermination, such as mass killing, is mass killing legally, which is not, oh yeah, there's a written law where, oh yeah, kill this person. No, it's the idea of someone killing someone else and no repercussions are being made. And that happened by mass rapes and murders, and nobody was being punished. So it was like, as long as you were killing a black person, like, you were okay. Like, there was no consequences to be afraid of, and this is how it kept on going. Denial. Perpetrators deny that they committed any crimes and often blame what happened on their victim. Omar Hassan al-Bashir, that's the president. Basically, he was just like, no, there's no genocide, it never happened. What we're doing is fighting the rebel groups. So what they're doing is blaming the rebel groups, like, oh no, the only people that are dying are the rebel groups that are attacking the government and trying to bring the government down. So if we happen to attack them and like civilians get like in the way, then like, you know, we're not purposely attacking the civilians, we're attacking the rebel groups. And they also stated that the civilians were the ones who were giving the rebel groups the food and stuff like that to keep them going. And why is it not polarization? So basically all the 8 stations are there except for polarization. It's not polarization because there was no propaganda. They didn't have signs of big black people. They didn't have none of that. they didn't have laws about intermarriage in place during the genocide. What had happened was during the Civil War, there were laws about intermarriage where they weren't able to intermarry. But after that, like after the peace treaty and everything, that law was broken. But because it was mentally instilled where they were just used to not getting married, it passed down onto the genocide era.